بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
Remember the definition of tayammum? Religiously, it is applying purifying soil to the face and hands under conditions, instead of making wudu or ghusl or washing an organ. So if you're making tayammum instead of wudu, you wipe your face and your arms, forearms. If you're making tayammum instead of a ghusl, you wipe your face and your forearms. If you're making tayammum instead of washing an organ, you wipe your face and your forearms. That's it. You make tayammum. If one cannot wash an organ when he wants to make wudu or ghusl, he either has a bandage or not. He might have a bandage like a cast or a sling or a band-aid or a cream. That's like a bandage. The cream is like a bandage. Or you might have a scrape, for example, or some burn or something, and you might not have a bandage there, but you cannot wash that spot. So if one cannot wash an organ, he either has a bandage or not. For injury without a bandage, like a burn or a scrape, one washes the healthy part and merely makes tayammum instead of washing the sick part. And he passes soil over the sick part. In ghusl, there is no order between the tayammum and washing the healthy part. Yani. So either you're making wudu or you're making a ghusl. But you have a part that you can't wash. And you don't have anything blocking that part. And for what we are saying right now, you're able to wipe over the part, you just can't apply water to it. So you wash. If you're making wudu, you're going to follow the order. So you're going to start with your face, then you're going to do your forearms, you're going to wipe your head, you're going to wash your feet. Now, where is this part that you can't wash? When you're making wudu, the time of tayammum starts when you get to that organ. So if it's on your arm, the time of tayammum is when you get to your arm. Whether right or left doesn't matter. Same thing for the foot. The time of tayammum is going to be when you get to the foot. Right or left doesn't matter. Just when you get to the foot, well, even if it's on your left foot, doesn't matter. Now it's time to wash your feet, and your part that you can't wash is your foot or part of your foot. Then that's when the time of tayammum starts. So you can wash first and then make tayammum, or you can make tayammum first and then wash. In ghusl, though, since there's no order in ghusl, there's no order between the tayammum and washing the healthy part. One can start with tayammum and then wash, or wash and then perform tayammum. And like we just said, in wudu, the time of tayammum starts at the time of washing the sick organ. The synopsis, the summary, is that in wudu, one cannot move to the next organ before finishing the previous organ by doing both the original wash and the substituting act, which is the tayammum. In wudu, you can't move to the next organ before you wash and do the tayammum. Whichever one you want to do first, do the tayammum and then wash, or wash and then do the tayammum for that organ. But you can't move to the next organ until you do both of those. Now, if one has a bandage for a break or a dislocation, or he has cream preventing the water from reaching the organ, then either he can remove that barrier or not. Now, when we say he can remove it, that means you have to keep that into consideration. Yani, sometimes you know for yourself. And when you have a doctor, even if he's a Muslim doctor, but he's ignorant about religious rules, his advice to you and his prescriptions are not based on religious judgments, then it's not simply because your doctor told you not to take it off that means you can't take it off. So you have to be mindful about that. The rule is if you can remove it without harming yourself, then you have to. So either one can remove that barrier or not. If removal does no harm, he removes it. He must. It's obligatory. And he washes what is healthy and sick. If removal is harmful by the upcoming sickness cases, the sickness cases, they're going to come. What do we have here? Like fearing death, fearing the loss of an organ, or fearing losing the function of the organ, fearing for the organ to malfunction, or fearing ugly disfigurement in an apparent organ. Those are all what we're calling here sickness cases. So if removing this barrier, this cast, or this sling, or this cream is harmful by these sickness cases, then one does not remove it. He can't remove it. Okay. But there's still something else you have to consider is if any of this barrier is covering some of the healthy part or not, which usually it will be. Usually the cast does cover some of the healthy part that's needed, that extra is needed so that the cast will work and stay in place. So, but you need to consider that. So let's see. Either this cast, this barrier will cover some of the healthy part or not. If it does not cover any of the healthy part, then there's no need to wipe it, to wipe the cast or that barrier, because wiping the cover substitutes washing the blocked healthy part. So then that's a third thing here. So far we have three things. One is the original purification, your wudu or your ghusl. Two is your tayammum. And three is sometimes you're going to have to wipe on the barrier. That's different from the tayammum itself. Wipe on the barrier with water. So either this cast that you can't remove is covering some of the healthy part or not. If it's not covering any of the healthy part, then there's no need to wipe it. So here, this sentence makes a leap because we didn't say anything about wiping yet. So this was stated here as if it was already granted. And really, it's just being introduced. So, yani, maybe it would be easier if we put up here somewhere. Sometimes you're also going to have to wipe on your cast. Sometimes you won't have to wipe on your cast. And then when we get down here, our minds will be ready for that. So, let's back up a little bit here. As you can see, this is so detailed. Look at this breakdown, just the visual of the breakdown itself. You see the dots, then you see details inside, then you see details inside the details. So, What are we saying here? We're talking about a person has an injury, and so he cannot wash an organ, whether wudu or ghusl. First things first, does he even have a barrier on? Either he has a bandage or not. If he doesn't have a bandage, then he washes the healthy part and he makes tayammum instead of washing the sick part. For injury without a bandage, then one washes the healthy part and then he makes tayammum instead of washing the sick part and he passes soil over the sick part. In the ghusl, there's no order, and in the wudu, there is an order, the details that we already mentioned. Now, if he does have a bandage, then you have two cases, which is what? Either he can remove it or not. So if he can remove it, then he has to. When someone asks you about this case, tell them that so that they know that. He might assume that simply because he has it there, then khalas, he might be able to remove it. If removal is harmful, and we mentioned examples of what that means, then he does not remove it. So, okay, he has a cast on and he has to keep it on. So then we look. Does it cover some of the healthy part or not? None of the healthy part is covered. That's great. If none of the healthy part is covered, then there's no need to wipe the cast. That's where we paused there because something new got introduced there. Where's wiping the cast come from? We didn't even introduce that prior. So maybe this section here could use a prior introductory statement a few sentences ahead so that when we get here, that will be expected and clear. So if your cast doesn't cover any of the healthy part, then there's no need to wipe that cast because wiping the cast would have been substituting for washing the healthy part that got blocked. So what we're saying is originally you're going to make wudu or ghusl. You don't have any injuries, so you're going to wash all your body. But then you got an injury, so now you can't wash a part. So you're going to make your wudu or your ghusl, but for that part you can't wash, you're going to make tayammum. Okay. Now, the part you can't wash, and so you're going to make tayammum. What if you have a cast there, then, and you can't take that cast off? Then you're going to look. Does it cover any of the healthy part, that cast, or whatever's like a cast? Why is that important if it covers some of the healthy part? Because the healthy part has to get washed, right? When you make tayammum, what's the tayammum for? The tayammum is for the part you can't wash, right? Yes. But now you got an extra problem, which is that you have a barrier on a part that you can wash. Your tayammum's not covering that. The tayammum doesn't cover that. The tayammum covers the part that you can't wash because you have an injury. Now you got a part that you're able to wash, but you still can't wash it because you got a barrier there. So something else has to cover that. So it's going to cover that, wiping that barrier. Wiping the barrier covers, replaces the healthy part that you can't wash because the barrier is in the way. And you can't take the barrier off. So I think that's clear. If anything there is unclear, let me know. Yes, it's wet wiping, yes. Three things get wiped in purification. The head gets wiped in wudu, the khufs get wiped in wudu, and the cast gets wiped in wudu or ghusl or whatever's like the cast, even if it's a band-aid, but you can't take it off. So there, you have a cast on. It's covering part of the healthy part that you really could wash had that cast not been there. Then now you know you're going to have to make a tayammum and you're going to have to wipe on that cast. Let me ask you, making tayammum is for what? Why are you making tayammum?
Part is unhealthy state.
For replacing the sick part. And wiping the cast is for what?
It's for ghusl or wudu.
No. Wiping the cast, yes, is for replacing the healthy part that you can't wash because the cast is in the way. That's clear? You said, what is covering the healthy part? Your cast is covering the healthy part. Like F was asking a few questions ago, like maybe your cast is covering some of your fingers. Let's say your break is on your hand, not your fingers. So you have a cast on your hand, but maybe your cast is covering some of your fingers too. So the fingers are healthy though. So that means your cast is in the way. When you make tayammum, you're not making tayammum for those fingers that you can't wash because those are washable. You're making tayammum for the injury that you can't wash, but you got a cast on. So what about the part of your fingers that you can't wash now? Now you're going to have to wipe the cast to replace the healthy part that you can't wash because the cast is in the way. Is that clear? Yeah, that's jumping a little bit. You have to tell me yes or no first. When I ask, is that clear? So that's yes or no. You have to say to me yes or no. And then maybe you can ask a question after that, like if it's not clear. So was it clear what I said or it's not clear? Okay. Alhamdulillah.
Yes.
Barakallahu fikum. So hold that. Let's keep going first. So if removal of the cast is harmful, then either that cast will cover some of the healthy part or not. If it does not, then you don't have to wipe on the cast because wiping on the cast would have been for replacing any of the healthy organ that's being blocked. So you don't have any healthy part being blocked, so you don't have to worry about wiping on the cast. So all you're going to do is make your wudu or ghusl and make your tayammum, and that's it. If nothing is blocked but the sick part, the injury, only the injury is blocked, which is the part that you can't wash anyway, then all you have to do is make your wudu or ghusl and make your tayammum, and that's it. So that's clear. Now, if the cast does block some of the healthy part, which is normal, then there's still another detail, which is what? Either that extra is necessary or it's not. The extra, the healthy part that's getting blocked, either that's necessary or it's not. That means you might have too much on, too much cast. If you're able to, you might tell your doctor before he puts you under, put you to sleep so they can fix your bone. Just keep it limited to as much as the break as you can so that you don't cover some of what's not necessary. So if it covered more than what's necessary, then one must remove the excess for purification. That's if he can, of course. So all those things you have to consider them. So then it means don't be sloppy. And I remind myself, don't be careless there. You go through all your considerations. Can I remove this? Is it taking up too much? If it is, can I remove that extra? Put the effort. What did Allah say? Jaza'am bima kanu ya'malun. Reward for what they used to do. It means for the effort that they used to put to obey Allah Ta'ala. So, if it covered more than what's necessary, he must remove the excess for purification, if he can. If he cannot, then one must absolutely make up the prayers. So what are we saying here? We're saying you got a cast on. It's too much. It's covering too much of the healthy part, and you can't take it off. So what are you going to do? You're going to do all what we said already. You're going to make your tahara, your wudu or your ghusl. You're going to make your tayammum. You're going to wipe on your cast because it's covering some of the healthy part. But since it's covering too much, now you're absolutely, positively going to have to make up all those prayers. That means you're going to pray now on time and still make up those prayers later. That's the Shafi'i school. Is that clear? So sometimes you're going to pray on time and fulfill your obligation. If you don't do it, you'll be sinful. And then you're still going to have to make it up. And this is one of those cases.
Sheikh, I have a question.
Yes.
I thought it was wiping was in three cases. One of them was in wudu wiping. It was in excess of the cast. Wouldn't one still wipe in order to be a prayer to be valid? Was wudu to be valid?
You said if one has extra cast,
Extra cash, yeah.
if one has extra cast, wouldn't he have to wipe for his prayer to be valid?
Yes.
Yes.
Max and X.
Correct.
So what is the reason for to make up the prayer again if he did
because he has too much.
too much? Actually. Then my other question is, what is too much?
Whatever is not necessary.
I ain't sure.
So what that means is it's usual that the cast is going to cover more than the mere injury. So yes, you are allowed getting some of the healthy part blocked because that's needed for the cast, usually. So that's not going to make you have to absolutely make up your prayers in all cases. This much of your healthy part being blocked has more leeway because that's needed. But if your cast is just absolutely too much, let's say you got your forearm broken and you got a cast all the way up to your shoulder. Yanni, I'm not a doctor. I'm assuming that's too much. They put your whole arm in the cast. Yanni, the only thing sticking out is the tip of your middle finger. You broke your forearm between your wrist and your elbow. They gave you a cast from your shoulder to your middle finger. That's too much. And you can't take it off. So now you're going to have to absolutely, positively make up all the prayers that you did with that cast that's just covering way too much. Had that cast only been covering, yes, some of the healthy part, but only as much as needed to keep the cast together, then you wouldn't have to absolutely, positively make up all your prayers. That's the extra, that's the part there. This making up all the prayers. So, in other words, if the cast covers some of the healthy part, you're going to have to wipe on the cast because that's replacing the healthy part that you can't wash. So does that mean you're going to have to make up all your prayers though? No, it doesn't mean you have to make up all your prayers. That's the difference. The similarity is that you have to wipe in both cases. The difference that when it's too much, you're going to have to make up all those prayers. When it's not too much, it's just what's needed, You might have to make up all your prayers or you might not. There's still more details to come. But if it is too much, you will for sure have to make up all your prayers. That's clear?
Clear.
So, if the cast covers some of the healthy part, which is normal, then either it covers more than what's necessary or not. If it covered more than what's necessary, then you have to remove the extra if you're able to. If you can't remove the extra, then you're stuck like that. So what you're going to do, you're going to do all what we said. Make your wudu or ghusl. Make your tayammum. Wipe on your cast because it's covering some of the healthy part. But since it's too much, you're going to have to make up all those prayers too. One must wash what he can of the healthy part, even by squeezing a wet rag around the area so that it may be washed by the drops. And then he wipes all of the cast with water. If the cast is on the foot, the time of tayammum is after wiping the head. We already said that. One washes the healthy part, and then he makes tayammum, and then he continues. Or he makes tayammum, and then he washes the healthy part, and then he continues. We already said that. So real quick, I'm going to break these down in my mind. I want to keep this in mind, man. I've reviewed this so many times, I always forget it. So there's some cases in the fiqh that are easier to forget than others, or likely to be forgotten. Tayammum in general is going to be a forgotten chapter for many people. So, you can't wash an organ. Then what's your case if you can't wash your organ? Do you have a bandage or you don't have a bandage? Either you do or you don't. If you don't have a bandage and you can't wash the organ, then what are you going to do? Who answers? If you don't have a bandage, a cast or sling or anything, and you can't wash the injury, what are you going to do? 5, 4, 3.
Can you please say that again? Please say that because I didn't hear it.
Yes. You cannot wash an organ. You have an injury. You don't have any bandage. So what are you going to do? What's obligatory on you?
Tayammum
And
and watch the healthiest part.
and yes. So, or you could say it this way. Doing your purification, which whether it's wudu or ghusl, and making tayammum. That's your obligation. So a person has an injury without a bandage. Injury that he cannot wash. He makes his wudu or his ghusl, whatever it is that makes him obligated to wash. And he just makes tayammum, and that's it. What if he has a bandage or the like? Then what do you have to consider? If you have a bandage, then what do you have to consider? First thing you need to consider. 5.
What can be wiped?
No. 4. Harm versus no harm? Not exactly.
How big is the bandage?
La. If you can take it off or not. First thing you want to consider, yes, moderator has answered. If you can remove it or not is the first thing you're going to consider. Because you need to wash your organ. So if you have a bandage, first thing you're going to consider is whether you can remove it or not. So if you can, then you have to. If you can't, then why you can't? Because that's harmful. So if you can't remove the cast, then what's going to be the case of your cast? The cast that you can't take it off. What's the case of this cast? Either blank or blank. What? What's the case? The first case of this cast that you cannot remove. 5, 4. You see if it's covering healthy part or not. Correct. Does it cover any of the healthy part or not? Correct. So yes, you have a bandage, but now is it covering any of the healthy part, or it's only covering the injury? So if it's not covering any of the healthy part, then what's the judgment? If your cast or bandage does not cover any of the healthy part, what's the judgment?
You wipe the healthy part?
And no, that's not what I'm looking for. 5. So if it only covers the injury, then you make ghusl or wudu and make tayammum. Yes. That's correct. That's correct answer. Though I was looking for it to be worded in another way, but that's correct answer. It's just same thing, which is another way to answer is to say the judgment is you don't have to wipe on the cast. If it's only covering the injury, nothing more, then you don't have to wipe on the cast. How come you don't have to wipe on the cast if it only covers the injury? How come you don't have to wipe on the cast if it only covers the injury?
That question rhetorical?
No.
That's because the cast is only covering the organ. I mean, you're covering that organ. You don't need to tell you a move for that.
Yes, that's correct answer, but there's something I want you to say. Here's answer. Wiping is the substitute for the healthy part that's covered, correct? Yani, how come you're not going to have to wipe on that cast if it's only covering the injury? Because the reason for wiping the cast is to replace the healthy part that you can't wash. But in this case, you can wash all of your healthy part. Nothing is being covered but the injury, so there's no need to wipe on the cast. So then all you're going to do is like what you just said, make your wudu or ghusl and make tayammum. So now you have a cast and it's covering some of the healthy part. If it's covering some of the healthy part, what are you going to consider once it's confirmed that some of the healthy part is covered? What are you going to consider after that? 5. If it covers more than necessary, exactly. If it's covering more than necessary. So, good answer. Correct answer. Barakallahu fikum. I'm so happy. Subhanallah. Correct answers are exhilarating. So if it's covering more than necessary, then what's the judgment? So you have a cast, you can't take it off, and it's covering more than necessary. So what's the judgment?
You have to make all those prayers you made while it was in that state.
No. Before what you said, F gave right answer. You have to remove the extra. Correct. You have to remove the extra if you're able to. And then if you can't, then what? So you're stuck like that. You can't take it off. Well, actually, I did say you can't take it off. So
Yeah.
I did say that. So then what's the judgment?
You still have to make them prayers.
Then you're going to have to make them all the prayers. You have to pray them on time and make them up too. Correct. The author says there are 5 cases pertaining to the cast. 2 of those cases, one does not remake the prayers. And 3 of those cases, one does remake the prayers. So 1, if the bandage does not cover any healthy part, he does not wipe it and he does not make up the prayer. That's clear, right? So he just makes his wudu or ghusl and he makes his tayammum and he prays and he doesn't have to make up any prayer. 2, if it covers some of the healthy part and he put it on while impure, he didn't have wudu or ghusl when he put it on, it covers some of the healthy part and he put it on while impure, then he's going to have to make up all the prayers that he prays like that. He prays them on time and makes them up. So there's a combination there. Cover some of the healthy part, put it on while impure. Cover some of the healthy part and put it on while impure. He's going to have to make up all those prayers. 3, if he were pure when he put it on and it does not cover more than necessary, and it's not on a tayammum organ, so that now that's an extra detail. Subhanallah. So like it's on his foot. Then he makes the tayammum and he prays and he has no makeup. For this is similar to wiping the khuf. If it covered more than necessary and he could not remove it, he must absolutely make up the prayer. We covered that. And the 5th case, if it is on an organ of tayammum, if that cast is on an organ of tayammum, so that's going to be his face or his arms, then one must absolutely make up the prayers for being unable to do either the original purification completely nor the replacement purifications. Because now his cast is even blocking his tayammum. His cast is blocking his wudu or ghusl and is blocking his tayammum. So he's absolutely going to have to make up the prayers. If it covers the tayammum organ, then with water, one must wipe that cast. And to avoid the disagreement of the scholars, it is recommended to wipe the cast with soil. That means in Shafi'i school, you don't have to wipe that cast with soil. That cast is on the tayammum organ. You don't have to wipe that with soil in the Shafi'i school. But it's good to do so because some schools said you do. It is not obligatory because tayammum is already weak. It's not obligatory to wipe the cast with soil because tayammum is already weak, so it does not have an effect over a barrier. Unlike water, water's effect over a barrier is known from wiping the khuf. If one washed the healthy part and made tayammum and wiped the bandage or not, and then he prayed an obligatory prayer, and then another obligation comes in, one does not need to repeat the ghusl or the wiping. He only needs to repeat the tayammum. He only needs to repeat the tayammum, and these details as mentioned here, we don't need to read those. That's fine. There's another saying that says otherwise, and that's fine. We don't need to go into that. We don't need to say more words here. So that's it. Yani, if one washed the healthy part and he made tayammum and he wiped on his bandage or he didn't wipe on his bandage and then he prayed an obligatory prayer and then another obligation comes in, he does not need to repeat his ghusl and he does not need to repeat wiping on the cast. He only has to repeat the tayammum. And that's it. That's the strong saying, according to An-Nawawi. He only has to repeat the tayammum. Wallahu ta'ala a'lam. Allah knows best. MashaAllah. We finished on time. Alhamdulillah. ما شاء الله كان وما لم يشأ لم يكن